Welcome to the exciting part, no? Microbial physiology. So this is the first installment of the microbial physiology. So I hope nakakain kayo na mabuti at sana hindi kayo antukin no, sa kinain nyo. So we'll be trying to discuss the introduction as well as the structural aspects of physiology, no? Microbial physiology. And then we move on to the metabolism. Okay, so I'll start na. Okay, so sabi ko nga, so welcome to microbial physiology. Okay, so first, let us define what is physiology. No? So general physiology. So it's the study of function and activities of living organisms, no? As well as the physical and chemical phenomena involved. So this is as defined by Merriam-Webster. So when we see keywords here, right? So we see function, activities of living organisms, no? As well as physical and chemical phenomena. So when we say we're going to study microbial physiology, then we will be studying the physiology of microorganisms. So for in this case, we will focus more on the bacterial physiology. So we have model organisms like E. coli, Bacillus, and then we will compare that with Archaea. No, so these are another group of prokaryotic microorganisms. So that's what we're going to do. And then we say we have function, we have activities, and then we have physical and chemical phenomena. So usually for microbial physiology, we start with structural. No, so we divide the course into two. So first we discuss the structural aspect of physiology, and then after that we discuss uh, the processes, the metabolic pathways. So that's what we're going to do. So expect nyo for the part one of microbial physiology, we'll start with the structural, no? Structural aspect of microbial physiology as well as the functions and all the activities involved with these structures. No? So physiology, as well as microbial physiology, is a multidisciplinary science or field. So it involves biochemistry. So that's why di ba ang prereq natin ay Chem 160 kasi you need biochemistry to better understand physiology. Nutrition, genetics, cytology, so everything. No? So all the omics are now part of the study of physiology. So what is the importance of studying microbial physiology? So uh, importante siya because you can apply it in other fields. So when you take up food microbiology, if you take up environmental or microbial ecology, basic microbiology, microbial genetics. So you can see aspects of physiology leaking out. No? So makikita nyo na dapat meron akong understanding ng biochem para maintindihan ko kunyari yung processes na nangyayari sa food, kunyari fermentation, etc. So and microorganisms are good model organisms for various life processes. So for prokaryotic metabolic processes, E. coli and Bacillus are usually used as model organisms. For eukaryotes, we use yeast. It's a microorganism, a single cell eukaryote. So uh, kaya ginagamit siya, no? Yung microbial physiology. Okay, so the first thing that we need to differentiate is the difference between the prokaryote and the eukaryote. So I have here a slide showing you, or a diagram, a table showing you the difference between the prokaryote and the eukaryote. So in terms of the nucleus, so we say that it's present in eukaryote and it's absent in prokaryote. So in prokaryotes, you can only see a dense material in the middle. No? Minsan wala nga siya sa gitna. No? So that's the nuclear material, but it's not enclosed in a nuclear membrane, or what we call the nucleus in the eukaryote. And then the absence of organelles in prokaryotes versus the presence in eukaryotes. So that's a distinguishing characteristic of a prokaryote and the eukaryote, the presence or absence of organelle. And then you have the DNA structure. So most of the time in prokaryotes, you have a single closed loop. No? And there are no enzymes or proteins, sorry, not enzymes, proteins that are associated with the DNA structure. In the case of eukaryotes, you have multiple chromosomes inside the nucleus. And then you have several structural proteins that are associated with DNA, more specifically the presence of histones or histone proteins. So in terms of chlorophyll, so there's in some bacteria, it's present and they are dissolved in the cytoplasmic membrane. So that's for the prokaryotes. For eukaryotes, when they are present, they are dissolved in an organelle called the chloroplast. So in terms of the ribosome, you have a smaller type of ribosome in the prokaryotes, and you can find them in the cytoplasm. So parang hindi siya nakadikit or walang enclosure. No? Nakakalat lang siya doon sa cytoplasm. For eukaryotes, they have a larger ribosome, so larger than the prokaryotic ribosome. And they are sometimes free and they are sometimes bound to the membranes because we know that the ribosomes can be free or bound to the membranes. No? So in terms of the cell walls are generally present in the prokaryotes. So they have a complex chemical composition, which we will be discussing later on. For the cell wall of eukaryotes, so they are present in some types for the eukaryotes. They also have a complex chemical composition. So next is the flagella. So for the flagella, so of course they are made up of a different composition. So for flagella, usually they exhibit rotating movement. In the case of eukaryotes, they exhibit a whipping movement. So cilia is usually absent in the prokaryotes and present in some cells of eukaryotes. So in terms of reproduction, so usually by binary fission, it's a mode of asexual reproduction for the prokaryotes, and for the eukaryotes is through mitosis. And then you have your example, you have the bacteria, archaea for the prokaryotes. Then you have the higher no, organisms. For the eukaryotes, you have Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and then you have Protista, which are sometimes unicellular. Okay, so that's the difference between the prokaryote and the eukaryotes. So what is the significance of studying prokaryotes, or why are they important? Why are these prokaryotes important? So first thing we have to remember is that prokaryotes are ubiquitous, so you can find them everywhere. So when we say who is the most dominant, no, when we always ask who's the most dominant organism or who rules the earth. So sabihin ba natin tayo ba na tao? So baka hindi nga tayo, no? Uh, because these prokaryotes are ubiquitous, no? So they can live in places where humans cannot, no? So baka mga prokaryotes pa yung masasabi natin na dominante dito sa mundo, no? Hindi tayo. So second, they display great genetic and metabolic diversity. So they're very interesting to study. Why? Because they have various kinds of metabolic activities. You know? So different cells, different genera, different species, they exhibit somewhat unusual metabolic diversity or processes. So kaya magandang pag-aralan. No? So some of these processes, metabolic processes, which we'll study later on, are not present. No, are not present in eukaryotes. So they can do a lot of things that we cannot. So third, they comprise the majority of organic matter. So we know that it's true, right? That prokaryotes are important in the cycle, in the Earth cycle. So kung anumang cycle to, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, no? So they are geological cycles of the Earth. So we know that the prokaryotes are major players in these different cycles. Yun din yung sinasabi ng number 4, which they are major environmental determinants of on Earth. So hindi magtutuloy yung buhay sa mundo kung walang bacteria or walang prokaryotes. No? So kaya importante ang prokaryotes. Okay. So are you familiar with this one? So this is the phylogenetic tree of life. No? So this diagram shows you the origin of life and how these different microorganisms and different organisms are related to each other. No? So the phylogenetic tree of life was proposed by Carl Woese. No? Nalimutan ko na kung anong year yun, pero it was proposed by Carl Woese. And this phylogenetic tree of life was based on the 16S rRNA sequences. No? So when we talk in terms of prokaryotic, no? It's based on the 16S rRNA. So ano ba yung rRNA? No? So it's ribosomal RNA. So as you can see here, you have 3 domains. No? You have the bacteria, you have the archaea, and then you have the eukarya. So if you can see here, nakikita niyo ba yung arrow ko? Kita niyo? Yes? So if you can see here, they have an origin. No? So the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukarya arose from one origin here. The origin that we say here is what we call the LUCA. No? LUCA. So the last universal common ancestor. Right? So from the LUCA here, it diverged to the 3 domains. So the first one to split is the bacteria here. And then later on, in the history of the Earth, archaea and eukarya diverge from one another. So as you can see here, ano ba yung learnings na makukuha natin sa phylogenetic tree of life? So we can see that we have a common ancestor, which is the LUCA, and then based on the tree, the 16S rRNA ribosomal sequences, archaea and eukarya are more closely related to one another. And then I have here another diagram. It's the same thing, okay? So you have the LUCA here, and then you have bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. So this is what we call the 3-domain phylogenetic tree of life. No. So the third inference that we can see here, so as you can see in the bacteria, you can find different groups of microorganisms or bacteria here, right? So you have the Equifax, Chloroflexi, ayan. So Cyanobacteria, Chlamydia, Firmicutes, Actinobacteria. No? So these are familiar terms, familiar groups of bacteria. You have the gamma proteobacteria, beta proteobacteria, alpha proteobacteria, etc. But you can also see here the presence of the mitochondria here, right? Now nakita niyo arrow ko. And then you have the plastids here. So what does that mean? So that means that in this particular theory, we believe that the eukarya came from a process called endosymbiosis. No? So makita natin dito, di ba? Plastids, ito mitochondria. So ang sinasabi natin dito, nagkaroon ng endosymbiosis. So ang nangyari, parang yung isang cell, may pumasok na ibang cell sa loob. So yun yung sinasabi natin na endosymbiosis, di ba? And then that was the origin of those groups or domain of organism called eukarya. So sabi na naniniwala tayo na ang chloroplast at ang mitochondria ay solitary cell nung unang panahon na pumasok sa loob ng isang cell at naging organelle na lang. So yun yung mga inferences na makukuha natin sa phylogenetic tree based on the 16S RR. Okay. Okay. So if you look uh, if you look at the archaea and bacteria under the microscope, you cannot see a lot of difference, right? Because they might be rod shape, they might be spherical, oblong shape. They look the same, right? But so in the appearance, they look the same. But actually, in composition, they're very much different. No? So that's why we have to differentiate an archaea versus a bacteria. So sabi natin, kung tingnan natin, oh, microscopic yung mga yan. Tapos bilog lang or rod shape lang. So wala masyadong pagkakaiba. No? But actually, they're very different no, in terms of composition. So these are some of the differences between an archaea and a bacteria. So for the lipids, you have alcohols that are ether linked to glycerol. So when we talk about the lipid composition, for the bacteria, you have fatty acids that are ester linked to glycerol. So yung isa ether, yung isa ester. So please remember that. In the case of the cell wall, so for bacteria, we know that the bacteria is composed of the cell wall of the bacteria is composed of peptidoglycan, or what we call the PG. So that's the universal component, whether it's a gram-positive or a gram-negative bacteria. So in the case of the archaea cell wall, they don't have the true peptidoglycan. What they have is what we call the pseudomurine or pseudopeptidoglycan. And the composition of the cell wall is variable. Okay. So for the genome, so for bacteria, they are not organized like nucleosomes. So sabi natin, di ba, wala naman siya nucleus. No? So in terms of the genome, they have association sometimes with proteins, but these are histone-like proteins, no? And they are not organized like the nucleosomes in eukaryotes. In case of archaea, their genome looks more similar to the eukaryotes. So they have eukaryotic type histones, and they have DNA that are organized into nucleosome-like structures. So yun yung pagkakaiba nila, no? Mas organized daw yung sa archaea. And then they have differences in the transcription machinery and translation machinery. So they have different number of subunits, so around 4 in bacteria. And then for the RNA polymerase, archaea has 8 to 10 subunits, which are like eukaryotes. So if you talk about antibiotic sensitivity, the bacteria is sensitive to rifampicin, no? So yun yung yun yung default natin. So alam natin marami tayong rifampicin resistant strains, no? But the default is bacteria is supposed to be susceptible to rifampicin. But archaeal cells are rifampicin resistant, no? In the terms of translation machinery, FMET is the initiator, no? Amino acid, and MET for archaea. So basic differences in the process of translation. So of course, aside from these differences, no, if we talk about the, certain groups of archaea, so they have unique enzymes, coenzymes, and unique processes that are present inside their cells. Okay. So now we see this prokaryotic cell, right? So on the left is pareho pala yan, no? So this is an example of a prokaryotic cell. I guess you are familiar with the parts, right? So you have your nucleoid or the nuclear material. Here you have inclusion bodies. You have the cytoplasm, ribosomes that are dispersed within the cytoplasm or cytoplasmic content. And then in some cases, you have the plasmid. You have your locomotory structure, which is the flagellum. In some bacteria, you have the pilus. In some bacteria, you have the capsule, cell wall, and then you have the plasma membrane. So I think you know this very well, right? So now, sabi ko nga sa inyo, di ba, we will start with the structural features or the structural aspect of microbial physiology first. So of course, the best way to start is from the outside, which is the cell wall. So let's talk about the cell wall. Okay. Okay, so if you have questions, so you can just email, no, or send it through the chat box, and then later on I can answer if you have clarifications that you want to know, right? So okay, let's start with the bacterial cell wall. So the bacterial cell wall, as defined, is a rigid layer outside the plasma membrane. So what is the purpose of the bacterial cell wall, or what is its importance? So the first one, it confers the shape of the cell. So yung shape ng cell ay dinidikta ng bacterial cell wall, of course. It's a protection from osmotic lysis. It serves as an anchor for the flagellum. So nakakabit doon. No? So kaya hindi natatanggal yung flagellum. Okay? Kasi nakakabit siya doon sa bacterial cell wall. In some cases, they can confer pathogenicity. So the pathogenic substances are actually present in the bacterial cell wall. And they also protect the cell from the entry of toxic substances and pathogens. So what is the importance of the bacterial cell wall? If the bacteria has a cell wall, kasi alam natin mayroong mga bacteria na walang cell wall, di ba? Or the true cell wall. So if the bacteria has a cell wall, this is your gate, right? So parang, di ba, parang bakod nyo. Kung meron kayong bahay, di ba? Meron kayong bakod. Tapos yung bakod, that delineates the outside from the inside. So that's the most important function of the bacterial cell wall, it actually delineates or it gives you the delineation between the outside environment and the inside of the cell, which are your cytoplasm. So in the cytoplasm, they maintain a high concentration of dissolved solutes. So in that case, you have a high concentration, no? Significant value for the osmotic pressure. So to withstand this pressure, and if to prevent the cell from bursting, then the bacterial cell wall actually acts the part. No? So siya yung nagbe-maintain ng osmotic pressure. Kaya kasama yan dyan, di ba? Protection from osmotic lysis. Okay, so these are some of the importance of the bacterial cell wall. So the bacterial cell wall can be, we can divide it into two. So the bacteria can be divided into two big groups according to the bacterial cell wall. So they can be gram positive or they can be gram negative. Okay, so this is a diagram showing you a gram-positive bacteria and a gram-negative bacteria. No? So what are the parts of the bacterial cell wall? So of course, this is your cytoplasmic membrane or the cell membrane. So we know that the cytoplasmic membrane or the cell membrane is composed of lipids, no? Phospholipids. And they have this, alam niyo yung model ng cytoplasmic membrane or cell membrane. So meron tayong tinatawag na, ano ngayon? Sige nga, nasan yung chat box natin? Anong tawag? Ano yung sinusunod natin na model ng cell membrane? Nasaan na yan? Saan ko ba makikita ang inyong mga sagot? Ayan, sige nga. Yes, tama, no? Ayan, mga nag-aral na, nakakatuwa. No? Ayan, so the cell membrane is actually fluid mosaic, no? Yung sinusunod hanggang ngayon, yung pa rin yung sinusunod natin, na model, no? Fluid mosaic model, no? So we have the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic portions of the cytoplasmic membrane. And then you have proteins embedded within the cytoplasmic membrane, these ones, right? And then you have the peptidoglycan layer. Sabi natin kanina, di ba? The cell wall, the bacterial cell wall, the distinguishing characteristic is the presence of peptidoglycan. So, anong pagkakaiba ng gram-positive sa gram-negative? So, the gram-positive bacteria has a thicker peptidoglycan layer as compared to the gram-negative bacteria here, right? But the gram-negative bacteria, in addition to the peptidoglycan layer, they have an outer membrane. So, the outer membrane is not present in the gram-positive bacteria. So, yun yung pagkakaiba nila, no? Okay, so let's discuss first the gram-positive cell wall. So, what are the characteristics of the gram-positive cell wall? So, as I mentioned earlier, so they have a thick layer of peptidoglycan. No? So what is this peptidoglycan? This is a big insoluble porous polymer, no? Made up of a disaccharide, no? A disaccharide polymer that is linked by polypeptide. So if you measure the dry weight of the gram-positive bacterial cell wall, or sorry, the gram-positive cell, more than 50% of the cell's dry weight is actually peptidoglycan. No? So they try to measure the thickness of the peptidoglycan in the gram-positive cell wall. They say it's around 15 to 14 nanometers thick. No, kapal, no? Makapal na yan kasi maliliit naman itong mga cells na ito. No? So, and you can see here in this diagram, you can see the structure of the peptidoglycan, right? So, okay, so let's discuss this one by one. No? So, they say here that it's a disaccharide polymer. So, these are your saccharin, no? Saccharin molecules. So, this is your disaccharide. So, disaccharide kasi may dalawang sugars ka dito, no? So, there's one that we call the N-acetyl glucosamine or the NAG here. And then you have the N-acetyl muramic acid, no? Or the NAM. So, these are your two sugar molecules, no? Or the disaccharide polymer. So these two, the NAG and the NAM, are connected via the beta-1 for the glycosidic linkage, this one here. So we will see later on why this linkage is very important. No? And then, as you can see here, for the NAM or N-acetylmuramic acid, then you have amino acid, no? An amino acid chain or peptide chain. No? So usually this is pentapeptide. The precursor is a pentapeptide, but it becomes a tetrapeptide when they fuse together, when the peptidoglycan molecules fuse together to form your sheet of peptidoglycan. So you have L-alanine, glutamic acid, diaminopimelic acid, D-alanine, and then another D-alanine, which is removed during the transpeptidation reaction. Okay, so this whole structure here is what we call the glycan tetrapeptide. Tetrapeptide kasi apat yung peptides mo, yung amino acids. No? So this is the structure of the repeating unit of peptidoglycan. So tandaan nyo, no? So this is the structure of the repeating unit of the peptidoglycan, which is the glycan tetrapeptide. So this particular structure here is found in E. coli. Okay? So yan din yun, no? So simple lang, no? Yung isa kasi sa Madigan. So I found a diagram, the same molecule in the internet. So ito yung libre, yung kay Madigan, no? Hanapin nyo sa libro ni Brock. No? So ayun. And then let's talk about the peptidoglycan interbridge. No? So if you see here, so this is the diagram I got from Brock, no? The book of Brock. So here, is E. coli. So the E. coli is a gram-negative bacteria. And here you have the Staphylococcus aureus, which is a gram-positive bacteria. So as you can see here, we're trying to look at the peptidoglycan interbridge. No? Okay, so as you can see here in the gram-negative bacterial cell wall, you don't have a peptidoglycan interbridge. No? But if you look at the Staphylococcus aureus, which is gram-positive, no? So you can see here a glycan interbridge, no? A glycine interbridge. So you have 5 glycine molecules here connecting the amino acids or the peptides. So yun yung pagkakaiba ng gram-positive tsaka ng gram-negative. So ang tanong, lahat ba ng gram-positive ay merong glycan interbridge? Hindi, no? So this is very true for Staphylococcus aureus but not for all states, no? So meron din wala. So sabi natin, bakit importante yung peptidoglycan? So why is peptidoglycan important? And why does it give protection? Protection to the bacterial cell. So because there's strength, no? In the presence of peptidoglycan. So there are two. The strength of the peptidoglycan comes from 2 directions. So if you take at the X direction, so the glycosidic bonds confer strength on the peptidoglycan in the X direction. So sabi natin, di ba? Sabi natin, NAM, NAG, NAM, NAG, NAM, NAG, di ba? Yun yung disaccharide natin, no? So these are connected by the glycosidic linkages, no? So the beta 1 for glycosidic linkage. So that one gives strength in the X direction. And then the peptide bonds are connected to each other. So the peptide bonds confer strength in on the peptidoglycan in the Y direction. So that's why. So matibay pa ganito, matibay pa ganito. Kaya matibay ang peptidoglycan layer. So it's the same thing, no? So this one, this graph shows you the bacterial cell wall of a gram-negative bacteria. So you have yung pink dito, sorry, ano pink ba to? Violet, no? Violet is the N-acetylglucosamine or the NAG. And then you have N-acetylmuramic acid in blue. So you have alternating NAM and NAG molecules, no? Sugars. Linked by the beta 1 for glycosidic linkage. And then, sabi natin may buntot yung yung NAM, di ba? May buntot siya na peptides. 5 peptides. Pag yung 5 peptides ay nag-react sa 5 peptides pa nung kabilang glycan pentapeptide, matatanggal yung last amino acid and then you'll have the tetrapeptide. So yun yung function ng mga peptide bridges or peptide bonds and also the glycosidic bonds. Okay, so we have peptidoglycan, right? The next one is the presence of the tachyoic acids. So what are these tachyoic acids? These are polymers of repeating units of glycerol or ribitol. No, it's either a glycerol or a ribitol joined by phosphates. So what is the function of tachyoic acid in the bacterial cell wall? So these acids are highly antigenic, and since they are antigenic, they confer, no? Meron siyang role sa immune system, no? Or immune system na host, no? Yung interaction between the host and if they are pathogenic, no? The host and the pathogen. And then they anchor the walls to the cell membrane. So you can see here, so these are your lipo-tachyoic acid. Lipo-tachyoic kasi nakakabit siya sa cell membrane. Ito lang pahabaya, no? Yung tachyoic acid, nandun lang siya sa peptidoglycan. This one. If it spans through the peptidoglycan plus the cell membrane, then it's called the lipo-tachyoic acid. Like this one here. And then it provides high density of regularly oriented charges. Kasi nga, tachyoic acid, this is an acid, so these are negatively charged. So it contributes to the negative, no, overall negative charge of your bacterial cell. So they can also store phosphorus. And if bacteriophages are present in the environment, then this is where they attach. No? It facilitates attachment of bacteriophages, and they have a role in the inhibition of enzymes, which can actually hydrolyze the main molecules. So those are the different functions or importance of the tachyoic acid. So pangalawa, tachyoic acid. So let's try to see how the peptidoglycan is synthesized. No? So the first thing that you have to do is to synthesize your UDP derivatives. No, di ba sabi natin kanina, di ba? Meron tayong glycan tetrapeptide, di ba? Meron tayong sugars, tapos meron tayong amino acid. So ang importante rito, magawa natin yung backbone niya. No? So ano ba yung backbone? Ang backbone ay yung NAM tsaka NAG, di ba? So saan ba nanggagaling yung NAM tsaka NAG? No? So this sugar, di ba? Polymers or sugar molecules come from fructose 6P. Saan ba natin nakikita ang fructose 6P? Sige nga, sa chat box. Hanapin ko rin yung chat box. Saan nakikita natin ang fructose 6P? Dapat alam niyo na yan, di ba? Ay, teka, hanapin ko. Saan daw? Yes, ayan, mga nag-aral na. Natutuwa naman ako sa inyo. So, sa glycolysis, no? So, nakita natin nandun yung fructose 6P, di ba? So, the fructose 6P, this is an intermediate of glycolysis. And actually, you can, the fructose 6P can hindi lang siya doon pumupunta sa production ng pyruvate, di ba? Pwede rin siyang gamitin na substrate for the production of your UDP derivatives. So the first fructose will be converted to glucosamine 6-phosphate, in which you have your glutamine, no, donating something. No? So ano ba yung donate ng glutamine? So kung makita nyo rito, no? Ay, sorry. Ayan. So if you can see here, no, look at the structure of the fructose 6-P and the glucosamine 6-phosphate. So anong difference nila? The difference is this one. So the NH2 coming from glutamine was donated to fructose 6-P. So the fructose 6-P became glucosamine 6-phosphate. So ito lang yung nabago dyan, no? Yung NH2 dito, no? And then after that, what's the next step? So the next step, so you have the donation. No? So anong nangyari dito? The glucosamine 6-phosphate was converted to N-acetyl glucosamine. So N-acetyl, no? So may nadagdag ka na acetyl group, no? So ito, no? So this one, saan napunta yan? Ito, no? Kaya tinawag na N-acetyl glucosamine. So dinagdag mo tong part na to doon sa hydrogen dito. And then at the same time, your glucosamine 6-phosphate nagsara siya to form a ring. So the ring structure, which is the N-acetyl glucosamine 6-phosphate. So the third reaction here, you convert the N-acetyl glucosamine to N-acetyl glucosamine 1-phosphate. So this is an isomerase reaction. So pag sinabi natin na isomerase reaction, so pareho yung structure, pareho yung composition, pero nababago lang yung mga nare-rearrange lang yung mga molecules, kumbaga. So this one becomes 1-phosphate. Ibig sabihin yung phosphate na napunta from 6 carbon, napunta siya sa first carbon. So yun nangyari. So isomerization reaction, sorry, no? Yung nangyari, no? And then you have UTP here, uridine triphosphate. So nangyari, nagkaroon ka ng pyrophosphate here, no? So saan napunta yung phosphate natin na isa? So ano nangyari? So the N-acetyl glucosamine 1-phosphate becomes UDP N-acetyl glucosamine. So uridine diphosphate, no? So kumuha ka ng isang phosphate dito, dinagdag mo doon sa phosphate na meron ka na rito, kaya nagkaroon ka ng UDP, no? Uridine diphosphate N-acetyl glucosamine. So familiar ba siya? UDP N-acetyl glucosamine. So this is your first UDP derivative, no? Ito yung first na parang precursor for peptidoglycan synthesis, no? N-acetyl glucosamine. So dito galing yun, no? Sa UDP N-acetyl glucosamine. Okay? Tapos meron na tayong precursor ng NAG, di ba? O gagawa naman tayo ng precursor ng NAM or N-acetyl muramic acid, no? So saan manggagaling siya? Manggagaling siya sa UDP N-acetyl glucosamine. So bale doon din siya nagmumula, no? So some UDP N-acetyl glucosamine will become your N-acetyl glucosamine, while some UDP N-acetyl glucosamine will be converted to UDP N-acetyl muramic acid, no? So doon din pala nanggagaling, no? So parang hati niya, yung iba magiging NAM, yung iba magiging NAG. So to convert that, the UDP N-acetyl glucosamine will become UDP N-acetyl glucosamine 3-enoyl pyruvate ether, no? So ano nangyari? So ito ay phosphoenol pyruvate PEP. So you remove the 1-phosphate and then you attach it here. Ito no. Ito yung enol pyruvate ether na part dito, no? So nagdagdag dito. And then step 6 is an energy requiring reaction. So you have NADPH here, right? And then you have NADP here, no? So ano nangyari, no? So kung NADPH ka tapos naging NADH, so anong klaseng reaction to? So ang titingnan natin dito yung identity ng NADPH, no? Or NADH, no? The NADH is the reduced form of NAD, while the NADP is the oxidized form. So ibig sabihin na oxidize yung NADPH nyo. Tapos sabi natin sa redox reaction, di ba? Pag ang isa ay na-reduce, yung isa ay na-oxidize. So ibig sabihin, ni-reduce nyo tong UDP N-acetyl glucosamine 3-enoyl pyruvate ether into the UDP N-acetyl muramic acid. So meron ka na, no? UDP N-acetyl muramic acid. And then you have the UDP N-acetyl glucosamine here. So sabi natin, ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng NAG tsaka ng NAM? Yung NAM, meron siyang peptide na nakakabit, no? So for step 7, there will be a sequential attachment of the different amino acids. So L-alanine, D-glutamate, tapos yung kung ano man, no? Amino acid, another L amino acid of your choice, no? Yung choice ng bacteria. And then the alanine, D-alanine, and this one requires energy or ATP. And then you convert the UDP N-acetyl muramic acid to UDP muramyl pentapeptide. Okay. So yun yung nangyayari. So the first major step in peptidoglycan synthesis is basically the synthesis of your UDP derivative. So these are the precursors of your disaccharide, which is the N-acetyl muramic acid and the N-acetyl glucosamine. So yun yung unang step. Okay? So anong susunod na step? Na-produce natin yung dalawang sugars, no? So the next step is to attach the N-acetyl muramic acid with the N-acetyl glucosamine. So here you have the UDP muramic acid, no? This one here. So kung makita nyo, susunduin siya ng itong pilipid na to. Ano ba itong pilipid na to? Ang tawag sa kanya ay bactoprenol. Okay? So it's a bactoprenol. So the bactoprenol actually attaches to the UDP derivative, UDPM o yung ating muramic acid, di ba? Yung precursor ng muramic acid. So, anong nangyari sa cytoplasmic, ito yung inner membrane ng cell membrane, no? So, nandito lang naglalaro yung bactoprenol na yan. So, ang gagawin niya, susunduin niya yung UDPM or muramic acid derivative, tapos kakabit siya sa bactoprenol. So, you have the bactoprenol muramic acid complex. So, nawala na yung uridine monophosphate na natanggal na. Ang natira na lang yung muramic acid residue. And then the muramic acid residue, or this complex, will interact with the UDPG or UDP glucosamine precursor. So matatanggal ulit yung UDP, and then kakabit siya doon sa muramic acid. So ito yung tinatawag natin, sabi natin, di ba, paano ba ito nagkakabit? Anong klaseng connection to? This is the beta-1,4 glycosidic linkage. So the M will be connected to the G through beta-1,4 glycosidic linkage. So nakakabit sa bactoprenol. So meron ka ng glucosamine, and then you have the muramic acid, no? Connected to each other. So ang mangyari, meron kang flippase, no? The flippase is an enzyme that actually transport this complex here to the outside. So this is the inner membrane of the cell membrane, right? This is the outer side of the cell membrane, right? So ang gagawin ng flippase, parang ibabaliktad niya itong complex na to para nasa loob pa rin yung bactoprenol mo. Tapos makita mo, nandito na yung M at saka yung G mo na magkakabit. And then this will be deposited to the growing peptidoglycan molecule. So imagine niyo, ito yung peptidoglycan molecule niyo. Ikakabit niyo yan doon sa loob, sa may loob. And then you have a longer chain of muramic acid and glucosamine, no? Yung NAM and NAG mo. So ito yung NAG, ito yung NAM. NAM, NAG, NAM, NAG. So pag dumikit na yan dyan, mapi-free up na ulit yung inyong bactoprenol at pwede na ulit siyang sumundo ng isa pang UDP muramic acid precursor. So paulit-ulit lang yan. And then you can see here that the glycan chain is being extended, and this one repeats until you have a thicker or a higher concentration of your glycan chain of NAM and NAG molecules. So yun yung nangyayari. And then the last part will be the transpeptidation reaction. So ano nangyayari sa transpeptidation reaction? So this is a kind of a nucleophilic displacement. So nangyayari, this nitrogen here will attack the carbon portion of the amino acid. So ang mangyari dyan, matatanggal tong nasa taas, no? So nasa taas, this is equivalent to a D-alanine molecule. So the D-alanine will be removed, and then this part here and this part here will be connected to each other. So di ba sabi natin, nagsisimula ang transpeptidation reaction, yung peptide natin ay pentapeptide. Meron siyang 5 amino acids na nakakabit. So that's the precursor. But after the transpeptidation reaction, you remove one amino acid, the terminal amino acid, which is usually D-alanine. So nangyari, pag nagdikit na sila, nagiging glycan tetrapeptide na siya. 4 na lang yung laman. Kasi tinanggal mo na yung isa. Diba? So that's what happens during the transpeptidation reaction. Okay. So that's how peptidoglycan is synthesized in the bacterial cell wall. So tandaan nyo, it has 3 steps. No? So the first one is the synthesis of the UDP derivative or derivatives. The second is the extension of the glycan chain with the aid of the bactoprenol molecule. And then you have the third one, which is the transpeptidation reaction. So kung saan pagkakabit-kabitin mo na yung iyong mga peptides. No? Saan nyo ba nakita yung peptides? Nasa parang tail siya ng muramic acid or N-acetylmuramic acid. Okay, so yun yung tatlo, no, for the peptidoglycan synthesis. Now let's talk about the substances that actually inhibit the peptidoglycan synthesis. So these are some examples. So you have the phosphonomycin. So doon sa ibang libro, ang tawag sa kanya ay phosphomycin ata. No? So this one prevents the synthesis of the UDP NAM from UDP NAG. So nakita natin kanina doon sa synthesis, di ba? Kung anong step tong in-inhibit ng phosphonomycin. And then you have the cycloserine. It inhibits the pentapeptide formation. So yung amino acid, yung pentapeptide. The bacitracin inhibits lysine incorporation into the peptidoglycan and prevents the dephosphorylation of the carrier lipid. So kasi, di ba, hindi gagana yung bactoprenol natin, no? Kung hindi siya na-dephosphorylate. Then you have the vancomycin, tunicamycin, ristocetin. So this one inhibits the movement of the lipid link peptidoglycan precursor from the inner side to the outer side of the cell membrane. So this is what we call a translocation. So not to be mistaken for the translocation, the enzymatic process. No? So yung tinatawag natin translocation dito, yung movement ng precursor from the inner side to the outer side of the cell membrane. And then you have the penicillin, which prevents cross-linking. So these are some of the important substances that acts against the peptidoglycan synthesis. No? So of interest is the penicillin. So the penicillin, the original penicillin yung na-discover ni Fleming, no, has weak penetration in the periplasmic space of the gram-negative bacteria. So it's effective against gram-positive initially, effective against gram-positive bacteria, but not very effective against gram-negative bacteria. But now what we do is we modify the penicillin. So you have the penicillin base, and then we modify it chemically so that it can have a stronger interaction or stronger action against the gram-negative bacteria. So this is because of the selective permeability of the outer membrane. So saan ang mode of action ng penicillin? So the mode of action is in the beta-lactam ring. So it cleaves this beta-lactam ring here. So let's discuss further the mode of action of the beta-lactam antibiotics. So for some beta-lactam antibiotics, the action is in the inhibition of the final stages of the peptidoglycan assembly. So yung action niya nandun sa periplasmic space. So for the others, they bind to the penicillin binding proteins, or what we call the PBP, in the outer leaf of the cell membrane. So ano ba yung penicillin binding proteins yan? These are enzymes that are responsible, enzymes that catalyze the final stages of peptidoglycan assembly. So ano ba yung mga penicillin binding proteins na yan? So these are some of the examples of the penicillin binding proteins. So you have the PBP, PBP1A, PBP2, PBP3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have the PBP1B1C. So this table shows you that the number of molecules present in the cell can vary. So from 120, and then this one has 1,800. And then they have different functions. So for example, for PBP1A, this is responsible for murin or peptidoglycan synthesis for cell elongation. And then for PBP4, it's responsible for the cross-linking activity, or cross-linking, specifically the hydrolysis, the cross-link hydrolysis during cell elongation. But if you look here in the activity, you can see that these are the transpeptidases. Transglycosylase, transpeptidase. This is a transpeptidase, endopeptidase. So basically, they have the same activity, right? So these are your transpeptidase. So di ba sabi, inaral natin kanina yung different steps ng peptidoglycan synthesis. So we have 3, right? So yung third part, yung transpeptidation reaction. So ito yung ginagawa ng penicillin binding proteins. Okay. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. So you have your base penicillin, and then you can produce semi-synthetic penicillin like ampicillin. So ampicillin is a very common antibiotic that we use now. So this is active against many gram-negative bacteria. So the potency lies on the modification from the original molecule. So they added an amino acid amino group in the side chain. So this one improves the outer membrane penetration of the drug. And then you have the carbonicillin, which is active against gram-negatives, including Pseudomonas. So they have a modified side chain that improves the penetration of the drug to the outer membrane. So yung ginagawa niya. Now let's move on. So we talk about the peptidoglycan, right? So mostly we talk about the properties and then how the peptidoglycan layer is synthesized. Now let's see the difference between the gram-negative cell wall as compared to the gram-positive cell wall. So in terms of the peptidoglycan, you have a thinner layer of the peptidoglycan. So it only has 1 to 2 layers, which is present in E. coli. So around 2 to 6 nanometers thick. It only composes 5 to 10% of the wall's dry weight. Kanina nakita natin, di ba? More than 50% of the weight of the cell. And it may be present more like a gel than a compact layer. So aside from the thin peptidoglycan layer, it has an outer membrane. So the outer membrane is located external to the peptidoglycan layer. The composition of the outer membrane is similar to the cytoplasmic membrane, and it has 3 components. What are these 3 components? So you have lipopolysaccharides, lipoproteins, and you have the outer membrane proteins. So this is a nice drawing of the gram-negative cell wall. So this was taken from the Madigan's book, yung Brock. So this is your cytoplasmic membrane here. So you have the fluid mosaic model of the cytoplasmic membrane here. And then you have the thin layer of the peptidoglycan here. So actually the peptidoglycan layer sits in the middle of the periplasm. So the periplasm is before, when I was younger, we always thought of the periplasm as the hollow part. But that's not the case now. We know that it's not a hollow portion of the cell. So may laman siya, no? Pero yung peptidoglycan sits in the periplasm, in the periplasmic space. And then you have the outer membrane here. The outer membrane, you have the lipopolysaccharide, you have porins or proteins, you have the lipid A, you have the core polysaccharide, and the O-specific polysaccharide. So this is gram-negative cell wall. Okay, so what's important to remember in the gram-negative cell wall? So of course, it's important to remember the lipopolysaccharide, or the composition of the LPS. So this is composed of lipids and carbohydrates. It's the outer layer of the membrane protein. And it has three parts. So what are these three parts? So you have the lipid A, the core polysaccharide, and then the O specific polysaccharide here. Okay. So for the core polysaccharide, so uh, for the lipid A is composed of uh, this N-acetylglucosamine, no? And then you have fatty acids, no? Fatty acids extending in the lipid, the sugar and the phosphate backbone here. For the core polysaccharide, you have the KDO, the presence of these green molecules here. So these are the keto deoxyoctanoate. And then you have a series of sugars here. So yan yung mga heptose sugars. And then you have glucose, galactose, and other kinds of molecules. So it's important to note that in the core polysaccharide, so you have basically hindi nababago yung first few, yung nakadikit sa KDO, yung composition nito hindi masyadong nababago. Pero so it's not very variable. The first few uh, sugars connected to KDO, but then the outermost portion are highly variable. So nababago. It differs from species to species. So ito itong mga part na to. And then you have the O-specific polysaccharides. So the O-specific polysaccharides are composed of unusual sugars or polysaccharides. So of course we have there's also the presence of usual molecules like glucose, galactose. Sorry, this is galactose, rhamnose and mannose. But then you have some unusual dideoxyhexoses or sugars like the abicose, colitose, pyritose, and uh, thibulose. No? So yun yung pagkaiba nila. So parang kakaiba yung mga yung composition ng O-specific polysaccharide. So for the lipopolysaccharide lipid A, no? So yung first part na diniscuss natin kanina. So it's this one is the part that is embedded in the lipid bilayer membrane. So ito yung parang nakakabit dun sa lipid bilayer membrane. And the important characteristic of this one is that it's hydrophobic. And it's composed of two glucosamine residues linked by the beta-1,6 backbone with identical fatty acids. So ano ba yung identity ng mga fatty acids na to? So it can be a caproic acid, lauric acid, C12, myristic acid, C14, palmitic acid, C16, or stearic acid, C18. So these are the most common composition of the fatty acids that are linked to the glucosamine residues. Okay, so ito yung binanggit ko kanina, ibang drawing lang, no? So you have the lipid A, you have the inner core, you have the outer core, and then you have the O antigen. So yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, yung inner core is the one that is closest to the KDO, and it usually composed of heptose. And then you have the outer core that is more variable. So it has low structure, high variability, no? In terms of the composition of the hexose or the sugars. Okay, so for the lipopolysaccharide O antigen, so these are the polysaccharides that are extending outward from the core. So kagaya ng nasabi ko kanina, so they are composed of unusual sugars, which are different from species to species, from strain to strain. So pag tinanggal mo yung mga O antigens na yan, hindi naman namamatay yung bacteria. So they are not essential for viability, but they are important for pathogenicity of the cell, of the gram-negative bacteria. So this is the O antigen is actually the most immunologically significant, no, portion of the LPS molecule or the lipopolysaccharide in gram-negative bacteria. So sa immunology, ito yung pinaka-importante because this confers the pathogenicity or the virulence of the gram-negative bacteria. So, and also the O antigen is the most variable part of the LPS. So mostly these O antigens are hydrophilic, no? They are hydrophilic. So yung hydrophilicity nito, this enhances the solubility and the protection against environmental and other immune stressors. So that's the function of this lipopolysaccharide O antigens. Okay, so ano oras na? Wait, okay. Okay, so what is the importance of the lipopolysaccharide or the LPS? So the first one, they're important for avoidance of the host defenses. So that's what the O antigen confers, no? So para maiwasan nila yung immune system or yung host defense ng nung inaatake nila na host. Second, it contributes to the overall negative charge of the cell surface. Third, this lipopolysaccharides stabilizes the membrane structure. Kasi nga, di ba, manipis lang yung peptidoglycan layer niya. So an additional layer is a welcome event, no, para sa kanila. And then this one acts also as an endotoxic because sabi natin, di ba, it has a role in the pathogenicity or virulence of the bacteria. Okay, so yun yung LPS, no, yung lipopolysaccharide. And then you also have those lipoproteins that are present in the outer membrane. So what is the function of this one? Ano bang nature nito, no? So these lipoproteins actually they mediate, no? They are responsible for the connection between the peptidoglycan and the outer membrane. So the lipoproteins sometimes their role is to connect the peptidoglycan from the outer membrane. So they are synthesized by the cell. So usually contains a leader sequence, no? 20 amino acids long. So the main role of the lipoprotein is to facilitate the integration of the outer membrane to the peptidoglycan. So yun. So lipoprotein, lipopolysaccharide, and then the other one is your porine. No? So your outer envelope or the porine. So what are these porines? So these are proteins. So porines are proteins that form a small hydrophilic channel. So in the outer envelope. So this one allows the passage of solutes, so neutral and charged solutes of this size, around less than 600 Daltons in molecular weight. So it's composed of three identical units, and they form membrane hosts. No? And this is transmembrane. That means that it's embedded in the cell membrane. No? So these porins are present in gram-negative bacteria, but they are generally absent in the gram-positive bacteria. So tandaan nyo, no? So pag sinabing porin, so sa gram-negative mostly niyo yan nakikita. So as of now, they are generally absent in the gram-positive bacteria. So what they facilitate is the passive diffusion of a small hydrophilic molecules. So ano ba tong hydrophilic molecules na to? These are nutrients, no? Ions. They can even facilitate the passage of drugs or antibiotics. So basta yung molecular weight niya ay mas mababa, no? Less than 600 to 700 Daltons. Okay, so how do you synthesize the LPS? No, so ang kailangan lang tandaan, no? So the synthesis of LPS will be similar, of course, to the synthesis of the cell membrane. So importante lang na malaman dito is the precursor. So the lipid A is synthesized from the UDP and acetylglucosamine. So saan ba natin nakita to kanina? Saan? UDP and acetylglucosamine. So di ba sabi natin sa synthesis ng peptidoglycan. So the lipid A is usually made in the cell membrane by peripheral membrane proteins. And then the core is synthesized on lipid A. So ang nangyayari, the outer core is added one at a time to lipid A. So you have the lipid A backbone, and then you add these sugars composing the core. And then the O antigen is actually synthesized on a separate lipid carrier, the andecaprenyl phosphate. Yan din yung pangalan pala ng bactoprenyl. And then once it's completed, the O antigen will be migrated to the lipid core complex. So in terms of roles, so what is the role of the lipid A? So it's a primer, and it's the vehicle for transport of the core lipid A to the periplasm. So yun yung role ng lipid A. Now let's move on to the outer membrane proteins. No? So these are some of the outer membrane proteins that are present in the gram-negative bacteria. So you have OMPB, OMPC, you have the OE, LAMB, and then protein P. So these different kinds of porins have different physiological roles, but mostly these are they serve as diffusion channels, no, for small molecules. The only difference is that the specificity of these protein porins, no, so they serve as channels for different substrates. So this one here, these are your major OMPs or outer membrane proteins in gram-negative bacteria. So you have the porins, which functions for nutrient and drug diffusion. So that's their structure. The structure is made up of a trimeric beta barrel. No? So yung mga chemistry terms natin, so bahala na kayo mag-review na. So this is composed of the beta barrel. And then the TON-B receptors, another kind of OMP, is for the iron transport, no? Vitamin B12 transport. So in the case of the TON-B, these are larger beta barrels. No? And then you have the OMP-A, are made up also of beta barrels. So OMP-A primarily serves as structural support, and it has a function in cell adhesion. So different efflux enzymes for drug export and toxic catalysis. So that's another class of OMPs. And then you have the virulence OMPs. So these are OMPs that are important for adhesion, invasion, and immune evasion. So these are some functions that are important for the virulence of your bacteria. So this is how they look like. So these are the bacterial beta barrel membrane proteins. So this one is the OMPA, this is the PMPF, and this is the FHUA. No? So this one has nabanggit rin, different kinds of OMPs. So these are the parts. So you have the internal cavities here, yung kulay cyan dyan. You have the channel surfaces in white here, very distinct in the PMPF. You have the backbone, the polypeptide backbone in yellow. So ayan, makita nyo, di ba, parang barrel-like structure siya. No? So mukha siyang barrel. And then the constrictor protein in red. So this one, ito yung parang pump niya, no? Parang ano, constrictor protein. So this allows the passage or the entry of molecules and also inhibits the entry of other molecules. And then you have the perichrome in heme. So, so yun. So those are the bacterial beta-viral membrane proteins or the OMPs. Now, so we're finished with the cell wall, right? So we discussed the gram-positive cell wall and then the gram-negative cell wall. So we now know that the main difference lies in the thickness of the peptidoglycan layer, and also the gram-negative cell wall has an additional layer, which is the outer membrane, composed of your LPS, lipopolysaccharide. And now let's move on to the next layer, which is the periplasm. So the periplasm is a separate compartment, no, between the cell membrane and the outer membrane in the gram-negative bacteria. So if you see in the electron micrograph, like here, you can see that it's like a space. Kaya ang tawag natin dati dito ay periplasmic space. Kasi mukha siyang walang laman. But actually, it has something inside. So it's like a gel. Meron siyang gel-like consistency. So what dati kala namin walang function yung periplasm, pero meron pala. So ano yung function ng periplasm? So there are a lot of things that are happening in the periplasm. So para ano siya, parang may party doon sa periplasm, no? So there are a lot of redox reactions happening in the periplasm. You have osmotic regulation, solute transport. Actually, periplasm is involved there, protein secretion and hydrolysis. So these are some of the activities that are happening in the periplasm. That's why they say that the periplasm is a very active, no? So mali yung notion namin dati na walang laman yan, it's just a hollow space in the cell. No? So mali yung notion namin dati. So ngayon alam natin na maraming nangyayari sa loob ng periplasm. And we say that the periplasm, that's where the peptidoglycan layer lies for the gram-negative bacteria. So periplasm. So these are the components of the periplasm and their equivalent function. So here are some of the components. So first one, the oligosaccharide. No? So the oligosaccharides are involved in the osmotic regulation of the periplasm. Then you have several solute binding proteins in the periplasm. So this, as the name implies, they bind solutes, no, and deliver them to specific transporter proteins. You have cytochrome C. Saan ba ginagamit ang cytochrome C? Saan nyo nakikita ang cytochrome C? Saan? Sa ETC, yes. Redox reactions, yes. Tama, yes. Natutuwa talaga ako sa inyo. Na mga nag-aral na, no? Ready na ba sa exam? Yes. I'm happy that you actually have basic knowledge na sa mga yung mga dinidiscuss natin. So actually, this one is just a review, no? So napag-aralan nyo na to lahat. So ang ginagawa lang natin, parang this is just a refresher, no? So you know this already, you know them very well. We just need to remember them, no? Parang oo nga, no, yung pala yun. Oo nga, yung pala yun, no? Parang ganun, no? And then the hydrolytic enzymes are also present in the periplasm. So hydrolytic enzymes, so these are for degradation of nutrients or small molecules. Yun yung function niya. And then in some cases, you have detoxifying agents. And then you have the TONB proteins. So nakita natin dito. Natin kanina, di ba? TONB proteins dun sa OMPs. No? So for the transport of vitamins, no? Like vitamin B12. Okay, so that's a periplasm. So ang tanong, meron bang periplasm ang gram-negative bacteria? Meron, di ba? E, paano yung gram-positive? Meron ba silang periplasm? Anong sagot? Sige, tingnan natin. Meron bang periplasm ang gram-positive bacteria? Sige, antayin ko yung mga sagot nyo. None? Yes? No? Yes, no? Okay. Okay? So, actually, if you think about it, no, sabi natin, this is the layer between the outer membrane and the cell membrane, di ba? Yun yung in between, di ba? Tapos doon naka-embed yung ang peptidoglycan. That's for the gram-negative bacteria. So scientists thought that it's present in the gram-negative, but it's not present in the gram-positive because they don't have an outer membrane, right? But studies on the electron microscopy, no, yung mga pinag-aralan nila yung gram-positive bacteria. Tingnan nila kung meron ba siyang periplasm, no? They found out that they have, but very very small, no? So hindi kasing kapal siguro nung sa gram, hindi kasing distinct nung nasa gram-negative bacteria, but they have, no? They have a space, a periplasmic space equivalent to the periplasmic space of the gram-negative. So yun yung sagot. So yun yung sabi ng mga researchers, no, na meron din palang periplasm ang gram-positive, although very very small, no? Hindi napaka-distinct katulad ng sa gram-negative, no? So yun yung sagot. Okay. Now, we discussed about the gram-positive, the gram-negative bacterial cell wall, no? Paano naman ang archaea? Ang archaea, meron ba silang cell wall? Sabi natin, pareho yung itsura niya, di ba? So, pareho yung itsura niya. Meron bang cell wall ang archaea? Meron, no? So, there's what we call the archaeal cell wall. So, what is the difference between the archaeal cell wall and the bacterial cell wall? So, the main difference is that that the archaeal cell wall lacks a true, no? So lalagyan ko ng ano ha, true peptidoglycan layer. So it lacks a true peptidoglycan layer. So the archaeal cell wall may contain different substances like polysaccharides, proteins in the form of the S layer, and what we call the pseudo peptidoglycan substances. So what's amazing about the archaeal cell wall is that they exhibit different cell wall profiles, no? Iba-iba yung itsura niya. So kaya nga nilagay ko rito yung picture na. So this is a picture showing you the S layer that is present in the Proteus tenax, no? So if you can see here, ewan ko, na-appreciate niyo ba? Na-appreciate niyo ba ang itsura niya? So meron niyang ano in the field of science, meron tayong tinatawag na ano science art, no? Parang we consider this photomicrographs as art pieces, no? So ako I find it beautiful. Kayo ba? Ano ba sabi sa chat? Maganda ba o hindi? Ako lang ba? Ano nagsasabi na maganda? Ah, ayun. So maganda ba? So do you consider this as art or no? Ako lang ba yun? Sige. Parang napipilitan kayo magsabi, yes, sige na nga, sabi mo eh. No, because you can see patterns, no, in the structure. So, parang siyang, di ba, pag yung mga tattoo, di ba, may mga motif, di ba? So, parang gano'n, no? May motif. The composition of the cell wall, the structure of the glycan peptide, they have a pattern. And if you consider pattern as art forms, then you can see the art in it, no? Parang gano'n, no? Okay, so anyway, no, so this is the S layer in the Thermoproteus tenax, no? So, and they typically lack an outer membrane. So later on, I'll show you different patterns of the cell wall or different profiles of the cell wall. So if they have a polysaccharide, the cell wall is composed of glucose, glucuronic acid, acetate, and glucosamine. So this is true for metanosarcina, no? So but may not be true for other archaeal cell wall. So ang tatandaan nyo lang, so between archaea and bacteria, the cell wall is different. So it lacks a true peptidoglycan. So what they have is a pseudo peptidoglycan. Yung tinatawag nila. No? Okay. So here you can see here the different patterns, no, or different profiles, no, cell wall profiles. This one in bacteria, this one in archaea, and this one in bacteria. No? So ito yung sa gram-positive bacteria. So ito yung glycan, yung parang buntot dyan. And then you have the glycoprotein, the S layer, the one in yellow. And then you have the lipid. No? So the lipid is embedded in the cell membrane here. And then the pink bar here is your peptidoglycan, no? In bacteria. And pseudopeptidoglycan in the archaea. So makita mo, magkakaiba yung itsura niya. And for the S layer symmetry, yung S layer kasi yun yung nagbibigay ng parang symmetry, ano, sa mga cells, no? So they also exhibit different patterns. Okay. Okay, so how about the composition? So we already took note of the composition of the peptidoglycan, right? So let us compare the composition of the bacterial peptidoglycan with the pseudopeptidoglycan. So it's also called pseudomurine. Kasi dati, nung panahon namin, ang tawag sa peptidoglycan ay murine. So kaya, ayan, kaya parating nakikita yung term ng murine. So yun, it's the same thing with the peptidoglycan. So it also consists of glycan units, no, and linked by peptide. So pareho lang, no? Mas pareho lang, no? But the glycan units are different, no? So meron siyang tinatawag nating N-acetylglucosamine, which is also present in the bacterial peptidoglycan. But instead of having the NAM or the N-acetylmuramic acid, what they have is the N-acetyl-talosaminuronic acid. No? So medyo mahirap i-pronounce, no? So tawagin na lang natin siyang NAT. So NAT, so N-acetyltalosaminuronic acid. No? So yun yun. So imbis na NAM, meron silang NAT. So that's what differentiates the pseudomurine from the murine, or the pseudopeptidoglycan from the peptidoglycan. So for the peptide bridge, they contain L-amino acids rather than D-amino acids. Kung napansin nyo kanina, di ba, D-amino acids yung mga yung nando sa peptide bridges nung peptidoglycan. But in this case, you have the other form, which are the L-amino acids. No? So that's the major difference between the archaeal cell wall, or the peptidoglycan of the bacterial cell wall, and the pseudopeptidoglycan of the archaeal cell wall. So if you look at the archaeal cell wall profiles, you can see different forms. No? Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. No? Sa iba, ang meron lang, ito yung, this one is your cell membrane, right? Cell membrane. Itong mga to, these are your pseudomurine, or the pseudopeptidoglycan. So the pseudopeptidoglycan may be present in the archaeal cell wall, but in some cases they are absent, like the one here in the Methanococcus. For the Methanococcus, you only have the cell membrane and you have the S layer. This one is the S layer in a different conformation. So in the case of the Methanothermus, you have the cell membrane here, you have a thicker layer of the pseudomurine, and then you have a different form of the S layer here. So S layer, pseudomurine, or pseudopeptidoglycan in the cell membrane. So in some cases, the S layers is absent, and what you only have is a layer of the pseudo-peptidoglycan. So ito pa yung ibang confirmation. So minsan yung S layer wala sa labas, nandun sa loob. So you have the cell membrane followed by the S layer plus a layer of the pseudo-peptidoglycan. And then ito, the same thing, yeah, you have an S layer right after the cell membrane, and then you have a sheet, a proteinaceous sheet, no, protein sheet ang tawag nila. This one. So kaya nga yung archaeal cell wall profiles ay magkakaiba, no? So you can see different patterns or different profiles of the archaeal cell wall. Okay, so and then you have those bacteria that don't contain a bacterial cell wall. So like the Monocutex, no? So the example, siguro familiar kayo, no? Mycoplasma or the spiroplasma. So these are microorganisms that are mostly, parasitic and pathogenic. So these are small cell wall-less bacteria, no? So wala silang cell wall, no? Kaya tinawag na special case, no? So what they have an internal protein cytoskeleton. So that's the one that, kasi sabi natin, di ba yung cell wall yung nag-determine ng shape? Ito wala. So ang nag-maintain ng shape niya ay mga cytoskeleton or cytoplasmic structures within the cell. And then they have three layers, no? Three layers of the cell membrane. No? Di ba double layer ang ating cell membrane? Ito tatlo. Kasi meron siyang additional layer ng spheroids. So that's the one that serves as the cell wall para dito sa mycoplasma. Okay, so we have those with gram-positive cell walls, gram-negative cell walls, and then you have the arterial cell wall, and then you have those without a cell wall. So that ends our module for the cell wall. So may tanong pala dito kanina, no? Sabi natin, the question is regarding the S layer, no? So sabi ko kanina, di ba, yung S layer, usually nasa labas siya, di ba? Pero may mga instances na nasa loob siya. Ngayon, sabi sa libro, pag sinabi mong S layer, na outermost layer siya nung iyong cell wall, eh, no? So tama naman yun, no? So yung cell wall, yung S layer, most often than not, no, they are found as the outermost layer of the cell wall, S layer. No? That's true, no? But there are some exceptions, no, dun sa S layer. So meron yung sa archaea usually yung exception, no? Yung kunyari yung methanothermus, no? Yung methanothermus, meron pang iba, no? Yung methanothermus na inaalala ko na internal siya nung cell wall yung S layer. Pero yun nga, they are almost always found as the outermost part of the cell wall. So tama naman yung sinabi niya rito sa chat, no? So most of the time na outermost siya. Pero may mga cases, very few cases na nasa loob, no? So although sabi daw ni Brock, ayun, sabi ni Brock, tama naman si Brock. Pero merong exceptions na dun sa generalization natin. Ayan. Okay, so let's start with the cytoplasmic membrane. No? So na-discuss na natin cell wall, and then let's continue with papasok tayo, no? Punta tayo sa cytoplasmic membrane. So okay, so the cytoplasmic membrane is a very essential structure for all living organisms, if not the most essential structure of living organisms. No? So sabi natin kung ang outermost layer niya ay cell wall, paano kung walang cell wall? So ibig sabihin, yung cell membrane or the cytoplasmic membrane will be assuming the function. So why is it important? Because the cytoplasmic membrane or the cell membrane, it actually surrounds the cytoplasm, and the cell membrane separates the cytoplasm from the contents of the environment. So parang siya yung gate mo, no? So sabi nga natin, di ba sabi natin kanina yung cell wall, pero kung walang cell wall yung organism, di cell membrane yun, no? So bale, if we assume that walang cell wall yung mga cells, then the cytoplasmic membrane surrounds the cytoplasm and it separates the inside of the cell from the environment. So what are the functions of the cytoplasmic membrane? So it can be, it's a site for nutrient transport. It's the site of a lot of metabolic processes, like synthesis of membrane lipids, synthesis of peptidoglycan, secretion of extra cytoplasmic proteins, and more importantly, the respiratory electron transport or yung ETC natin, di ba? So kaya importante yung cytoplasmic membrane. So chromosome segregation is also involved. The CM or cytoplasmic membrane is also involved in chromosome segregation. Ito, importante, no? Establishment of the electrochemical gradient. Yung tinatawag natin na proton motive force, no? Di ba involved ang cytoplasmic membrane dyan? Motility, of course, together with the flagella, ATP synthesis, yes, and then intercellular signaling, and then response to environmental signals. So the cell membrane is actually the site for the receptor proteins. So ang dami, no? So if you can see, ang dami ko nilistang function dyan, no? So we can safely assume that the cell membrane is the most functionally complex cell structure. And yeah, so there are a lot of, marami siyang responsibilities, no? Sa cell, no? So it has a broad range of physiological activities. So sa dami ng mga nilista ko kanina, so these are the three main functions of the cytoplasmic membrane. So it acts as a permeability barrier. So it prevents leakage, and it's a gateway for transport of nutrients into and then the going out of waste inside the cell. So ano siya, di ba? Kaya tinawag natin siyang semi-permeable, no? And then it acts as a protein anchor. It's a site of many proteins, no, that participate in different metabolic activities. And then the third one is for energy conservation. So it's a site of generation and dissipation of the proton motive force, yung electrochemical gradient na tinatawag natin. So ano ba nangyari? So, sabi natin, di ba, during the generation of the proton motive force, anong nangyari? Lumalabas yung mga protons natin, di ba? Lumalabas siya sa cell. And then, nagkakaroon ng net positive charge outside the cell. And then we will have the net negative charge inside the cell. Katulad ng nandito sa diagram natin na to. And then, after that, ano mangyayari? So pag-aaralan din natin yun later on sa physio, di ba? Sabi natin, later on, after the generation of the proton motive force, no, the electrochemical gradient, the protons will enter the cell again to achieve homeostasis. So pag pumasok na yung protons natin through the ATPase, then you'll have the production of the ATP, di ba? Yung sinasabi natin, no? And eventually homeostasis. Okay. So, kagaya ng nabanggit na kanina, no? So this is the fluid mosaic model. So this is still true. This is still the model that we accept for the cell membrane. So you have the cell membrane. It's a lipid bilayer in which there are proteins and lipids that are freely floating. So ito yung example natin ng phospholipid molecule. So the cell membrane has a hydrophilic part and then it has a hydrophobic part. Yung loob ng cell membrane natin, yun yung hydrophobic part, and then you have the hydrophilic part dun sa sides, no? Yung top tsaka yung bottom. So, and this is made up of phospholipid molecules. So the lipid bilayer is permeable to water molecules. It's also permeable to gases and small hydrophobic molecules. So, ano ba yung composition ng phospholipid? The phospholipid is composed of the hydrophobic, the fatty acid group, and then the hydrophilic, which is the glycerol phosphate, no, yung head. So, meron tayong glycerol phosphate head, and then meron tayong fatty acid tail. No? Diba? Yun yung napag-aralan natin dati. So, tandaan nyo, fluid yan, yung cell membrane. No? So, let's look at the composition of the cell membrane. So, the first one is the phospholipid. So, these are membrane-associated lipids, which are structurally asymmetric. So, kung makita natin, sabi natin, di ba, meron tayong glycerol, this one, the blue part, and then you have the phosphate. The phosphate here in this particular example is connected to an ethanolamine. And then, so this is your head, the polar head, and then you have the hydrophobic fatty acid tail. So, ano ba yung pinaka-common na phospholipid? No? So, the major phospholipid that is found in the cytoplasmic membrane is the phosphatidyl ethanolamine. And yung second most popular, major phospholipid is the phosphatidyl glycerol. So, mas marami yung phosphatidyl ethanolamine. And then you have the fatty acids that vary from species to species. So, kung makita natin, no? So, ito yung ating fluid mosaic model. You have the hydrophilic region here. You have the hydrophobic region in the middle, no? Sandwiched by hydrophilic regions. So, ito yung fatty acids natin. And if you look at the electron microscope or microgram, you can see the fatty acids here, no? Yung parang gitna, no? Meron kang dalawang linya. Tapos, yun yung hydrophilic region. And then, doon sa gitna, parang makita mo na yung light gray dito, that those are the fatty acids. Sorry. Ayan. So, another part or another part of the cell membrane are the proteins. So you have two kinds of proteins that you can find in the cell membrane. So you have the integral proteins. These are the ones that are embedded in the cell membrane, and those peripheral proteins. So these are attached to the membrane surfaces by ionic interactions. So most lipoproteins with a lipid tail or amino terminus of the protein are present now in the cell membrane, and the function of this is for anchorage of the protein in the membrane. So aside from proteins, you can find hopanoids in the cell membrane. So what are these hopanoids? These are rigid, planar, spheral-like molecules. So the function of hopanoids is to increase the strength of the membrane. No? So yun yung kanyang function. So in terms of the integral and the peripheral proteins, if you're doing experiments in the lab, so how can you differentiate from the integral and the peripheral proteins? So paano ka kung gusto mo silang paghiwalayin, anong gagawin mo? So the trick is to, because of the nature of the integral and the peripheral proteins, you can remove the integral proteins by using detergents or solvents. In the case of peripheral proteins, you can remove it using salt solutions. Bakit? Kasi yung peripheral proteins, sabi dyan, they are attached to the membrane surfaces by ionic interaction. So ibig sabihin, pag gumamit ka ng salt solution, pwede mo siyang tanggalin. Diba? So that's how you differentiate and separate the integral from the peripheral proteins. Okay, so trivia lang yun. No? So let's go to the membrane synthesis. So membrane synthesis is divided into different activities. So the first activity is lipid synthesis, so or the fatty acid synthesis. So actually, the phospholipid is a product of three separate activities as shown in the slide. No? So the first step is the synthesis of fatty acids, and then the fatty acids will bind to the glycerol 3-phosphate, and then the polar head groups will be converted. No? So the conversion of the polar head groups to produce the appropriate lipid. No? So let's start with the fatty acid biosynthesis. So ano nangyayari sa fatty acid biosynthesis? No? So ito yung first part. No? So the most important thing to remember in this diagram, so itong diagram na to makikita niyo yan sa kay Barton tsaka kay White, no? Yung libro na White. So kilala ba si White? So White is si David White ang best friend niyo. No? So sabihin ko na sa inyo, no? So si David White ang inyong best friend. So kung makikita niyo, di ba meron siyang libro? Kung meron kayo ng librong yon, basahin niyo siya, maganda siya. That's I think that's the major no reference for microbial physiology. So if you can get a hold of this book by White, please do so and please read. No? So that will help you aside from Brock. Okay, so let's continue. No? So for this diagram, the most important thing here is the production of the malonyl-CoA. This one here, malonyl-CoA. No? So what happens here is that you assimilate a carbon, CO2, no? CO2 assimilation that results to the synthesis of malonyl-CoA. So the malonyl-CoA, bakit importante yung malonyl-CoA? Because the malonyl-CoA is the precursor for fatty acid. So you start with acetyl-CoA. So acetyl-CoA, ilang carbons ba ang acetyl-CoA? Sige nga, nasaan yung ano, ng ating estudyante? Acetyl-CoA, 2. Tama, acetyl-CoA has 2 carbons. No? And then you will convert it to malonyl-CoA, which has how many carbons? Malonyl-CoA, 3. Tama. No? So ibig sabihin, acetyl-CoA, dadagdagan mo siya ng isang carbon to form malonyl-CoA. And then the entry point for fatty acid synthesis is malonyl-CoA. Kaya kailangan natin gumawa ng malonyl-CoA. So to initiate this, so acetyl-CoA, you need carboxyl transferase. Okay? So saan manggagaling ang iyong carbon? So you have ATP. So this is an ATP requiring process. Plus you have a carbonate, no? Carbonate, CO3. So mangyari dyan, the carbonate will be transferred to the BCCP. Ano ba yung BCCP na yan? That's the biotin carbonyl carrier protein. So this is a carrier protein. So this carries the carbon, no, in the form of CO2 here. So BCCP CO2. No? So makita natin dito, energy requiring process, ATP naging ATP. And then your BCCP binds to the CO2. And then this CO2 will be transferred to the acetyl-CoA here to form your malonyl-CoA. You have 3 carbons. No? Tapos yung BCCP, ma-free up na ulit siya para tumanggap na naman ng panibagong carbonate. No? So yun yung nangyayari. So malonyl-CoA is converted to malonyl ACP later by the malonyl-CoA translates. No? So pag nandiyan na yan, this one here, this is the starting portion. No? So saan galing to? Galing yan sa malonyl-CoA. Tapos yung malonyl-CoA, yung CoA, tatanggalin mo, papalitan mo siya ng acyl carrier protein, yung ACP na tinatawag natin. Okay, so so saan tayo mag-start? So using the beta-keto-acyl ACP synthase, so you have the malonyl ACP here. Na? So we remove 1 carbon and the ACP, and then you attach it to the growing fatty acid skeleton. Ito yung fatty acid skeleton natin, di ba? So saan napunta yun? So ito yung CH3, CH3, CH2, X, ito yung C double bond O, tapos yung ACP. So tinanggal natin yung ACP, di ba? So ang nangyari, kinabit natin yung CH2, C double bond O, saka ACP dito. Ay, sorry. Tama? And then, the second reaction is the NADPH requiring reaction. So the NADPH becomes converted to NADP. So ano nangyari dito? So this is an oxidation of the NAD molecule. No? Kung na-oxidize to, ibig sabihin yung inyong molecule, this molecule, becomes reduced. So paano siya na-reduce? Kung titingnan nyo yung structure niya, so ito lang yung nabago. No? So this one, you have the hydroxyl molecule here. No? Napalitan yung double bond. So this is a reduction reaction. So this is catalyzed by your beta-keto-acyl ACP reductase. Kaya nga, reductase eh. No? So this is a reduction reaction. And then there is a dehydration reaction. So dehydration reaction, ibig sabihin, you remove water. You remove a water molecule here to form this molecule. No? So tatanggalin mo yung ito, no? Tinanggal mo yung OH tsaka isang H. And then you'll form a double bond between these 2 carbons here. So this is caused, or the enzyme responsible for this is the beta-keto-acyl ACP dehydrase. And then another reduction reaction here from NADPH naging NADP, di ba? So reduction, tatanggalin mo lang yung double bond dito. So you'll have 1 whole cycle for the elongation of the fatty acid with an additional 2 carbons. So kung makita nyo, the elongation of the fatty acid is extended by 2 carbon units at a time. So dalawa, no? Dalawa lang ng dalawa. Yung nadadagdag mo. Okay, so kanino ba yun? So that's the fatty acid biosynthesis. No? And then after that, I guess, hindi naman ganun ka-importante siguro yung detail nito, no? So these are the different enzymes that are involved in the formation of the phospholipid biosynthesis. So you start with the glycerol 3-phosphate. The glycerol 3-phosphate is actually an intermediate of the glycolysis. So you convert the glycerol 3-phosphate to one acyl glycerol 3-phosphate. So you attach an acyl group, no? And then you attach another acyl group to form your phosphatidic acid, and then convert that to CDP diacyl glycerol. And then you have two fates for the CDP diacyl glycerol. So one will become your phosphatidyl ethanol amine, or if it goes to another pathway, then the CDP diacyl glycerol will become your diphosphatidyl glycerol. So depending on the genetics, depending on the nature of the microorganism, it might produce a phosphatidyl ethanol amine or a diphosphatidyl glycerol. So yun lang yung pathway na to. So this is the phospholipid biosynthesis. And then once you form the phospholipid, you will form the polar head and then the fatty acid. Tapos pag didikitin mo siya, di ba? And then this phospholipid will be migrated from the cytosol to or the cytoplasm to the outer portion of the cell membrane. Kung saan man siya pupunta, kung sa outer siya or sa inner. So this phospholipid migration is catalyzed by these different proteins, or what we call the flippase enzymes. No? So these flippase enzymes are responsible for the trans-bilayer movement of membrane lipids. So we have 4 different kinds of enzymes here, membrane for trans-bilayer movement. So one is the spontaneous phospholipid migration. So this one is bidirectional. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng paloob, palabas, labas, paloob. And this one doesn't need energy, and it's non-specific kasi nga spontaneous to eh. The other one requires ATP, this one here, the orange one. So this is responsible for the P-type flippase. This is responsible for the inward movement of phospholipids. And this one requires ATP. The ABC flippase, on the other hand, is responsible for the outward movement. And this also requires ATP. And then we have the other type, which is called the scramblase. So the scramblase, similar to spontaneous, is bidirectional. And also it doesn't need energy. No? But instead, it needs cations, no? Ca2+. So this is a Ca2+ dependent phospholipid migration process. Okay, so when you assemble the proteins, you need a pathway for this. So usually the cell membrane proteins are synthesized by cytosolic ribosomes. And then these proteins will be translocated across the plasma membrane. And the pathway, or the process that is usually involved here, is a sec-dependent pathway. So for the sec-dependent pathway, so you have the proteins are produced by your ribosomes here, right? And then you have the signal sequence. So what happens is that you have a leader sequence. This is the signal peptide here. This one binds to the sec-B. So yung sec-dependent pathway, yung tinatawag natin na Usher-Chaperone pathway, no? Na tinatawag natin, no? So ang gagawin ng sec-B, the sec-B will actually bind to the unfolded pre-protein, this one here. And then the sec-B will aid in transferring the unfolded protein to the sec-A. So the sec-A is a peripheral component of the translocase here. Once this complex is bound to the sec-A will now deliver this protein to your translocon. Ito, itong green tsaka itong blue na to. And then what happens is that the ATP, so this is an ATP requiring process. The ATP will, once ATP is attached, this protein will be pushed through this sec-A protein. So parang nangyari, parang syringe, no? Parang ipinupush mo yung unfolded protein mo pataas hanggang sa lumabas siya dito. And now you have your unfolded protein being transported outside the periplasm. So ganun. So anong nangyari dito? Parang syringe siya, no? So parang ini-inject mo yung unfolded protein. So what's the difference between the sec-A and the TAT-A? The TAT pathway, no? The sec actually transports unfolded protein. So pag folded siya, hindi siya makakadaan dun sa sec protein. So yun yung basic difference nila. So that's how proteins or phospholipids and proteins are produced for the cell membrane. Okay. Okay, so tapos na tayo sa cell membrane, no? So alam natin na importante yung cell membrane, no? Kasi maraming physiological processes ang nangyayari sa cell membrane. So now let's look at some intracytoplasmic components, no? So the first one is the intracytoplasmic membrane or the cytomembrane. So the cytomembrane is actually connected to the plasma membrane. So this is This is an integral part of some microorganisms or bacteria. In some cases, archaea, like the metanotrophs, the nitrifiers, phototrophs, and the nitrogen fixers. No? So what's the purpose of this cytomembrane? So the purpose of this one is to increase the membrane surface area. Kasi kailangan nila na maraming energy. No? So for energy transduction processes, since we say that the membrane is involved in the energy transduction processes, to increase the process, no, you have to increase the membrane surface area. And this is through the formation of different cytomembranes. Okay, so and then another inclusion is your mesosome. So what are these mesosomes? So these are invaginations of the plasma membrane in the shape of a lamellae or a vesicle or a tubule. No? So what is the function of the mesosome? So they are involved in cell division, cell septum formation. In some cases, they are involved in electron transport, photosynthesis, cell wall formation, DNA replication. Mesosome can even be in sporulating or endospore forming bacteria. They are involved in sporulation. So ito daw yung mesosome dyan. No? So these are invaginations of the plasma membrane. So marami rin siyang function. Now let's look at the cytoplasm. So cytoplasm. So ito yung nasa loob ng cell, di ba? So ito yung parang sabi natin, di ba ang tawag natin sa cytoplasm ay solvent? Parang ganun, di ba? So the cytoplasm consists of the aqueous solution of three groups of molecules. So you have, it's composed of macromolecules, it's composed of small organic molecules, and various inorganic ions and ribosomes. So yun yung main component. Of course, there are other molecules present, but these are the three main components: macromolecules, small organic molecules, and then you have ions and ribosomes. So what are the structural components that you can find in the cytoplasm? You have the nucleoid or the genetic material. You have a lot of ribosomes, and you have several inclusion bodies. So cytoplasm, that's the cytoplasm. So if you look at the molecular composition of of E. coli, so this is under normal condition. When we say normal condition, pH 7, growing at 35, 30 to 35, no, minsan 37. So they try to determine the percent dry weight, no, of the different molecules. And they found out that the molecule with the highest percentage in the cell, in a single cell, is the protein. So which is around 55% of the dry weight, followed by the total RNA, 20% or 20.5, DNA is 3.1, phospholipid 9.1, lipopolysaccharide 3.4, and so on. So for a total of 100%. So protein, no, yung pinakamarami. So sabi natin, di ba, the cell is 70% made up of water. So in terms of the inorganic ions that are present in the cytoplasm of the growing bacterial cells, so these are the different inorganic ions that you can see. So you have potassium, so in no particular order, no? Potassium, ammonium ion, calcium, ferric ions, magnesium, manganese, no? Cobalt, copper, etc. Zinc, no? Phosphate, sulfate, no? So these are the inorganic ions that are important. So here, I think I shared this slide in the handout. So you can see here that they have different functions. So for example, for potassium, no? Potassium is important for the maintenance of the ionic strength. So kung maalala nyo, the potassium is the first compatible solute that is being used by the E. coli cell, no, to respond to changes in the osmotic pressure or osmotic stress. So, and they act as cofactor for certain enzymes. So, ammonium ion is important for nitrogen assimilation. We know that. Calcium is a very important cofactor. Calcium is a very integral ion for cell signaling. And then you can find ferric ion in heme, diba? Tapos yan, magnesium, manganese, no, sa replication process, yung magnesium. And then all the other zinc, sulfate, phosphate, no? So alam natin importante ito sa energy assimilation of assimilation and for power for metabolic reactions, no? So these are the important inorganic ions in the cytoplasm. So in terms of the small molecules, you can find different or various molecules, no, like amino acids, nucleotides, fatty acids, sugars, quinones, vitamins, coenzymes. So they vary in number in different cells. So different cells, different species, different genus will have different number of kinds of these different molecules. So yun lang yung sinasabi nitong slide na to. So you have small molecules that are present in the cytoplasms that are essential for the normal growth of the bacterial cell. So in this case, growing in a minimal medium with glucose. Okay, so another important part of the cell is the prokaryotic cytoskeleton. So hindi lang para sa prokaryotes, pero para sa lahat ng cells is the cytoskeleton. So if you look at the homologs, no, the functional homologs, you have a counterpart. No? These cytoskeletal filaments are also similar to its eukaryotic counterpart. So these are some examples of the more important proteins, no, cytoskeletal proteins. So one is FPSZ, which is involved in cell division. So So actually, this is the first, no, the first protein, the first cytoskeletal protein that is identified in prokaryotes. So this is similar to tubulin. So it forms filaments and is important during cell division. So in some organisms, MREB is similar to actin. So alam niyo yung actin, di ba? Actin cytoskeleton is important in the eukaryotic cells. So MREB is like that. So the main purpose is to for the maintenance of the cell sheet. So paano nila nalaman nung dinilit nila yung MREB, hindi siya nag-form ng yung cell shape na nabago. Ano? Okay. So another protein is the crescentin, or this crescentin is actually present in Caulobacter. So ito, sa mga to. Caulobacter. So it's important in the maintenance of the cell shape. So ano bang shape nung Caulobacter? It's a crescent shape bacterium. So the one that maintains its crescent shape is the crescentin. So those are some important prokaryotic cytoskeleton or cytoskeletal proteins that of interest. So the next one are your ribosomes. So ribosomes are complex structures now made up of protein and ribonucleic acid. So of course they are present in the cytoplasm. They can be attached to the matrix or they can be loosely found in the cytoplasmic contents. So it's composed of the small and the large subunit. So you know this very well. And then you have a 70S ribosome as your complete ribosome unit. No. So you have three kinds of RNAs that are associated with the ribosomes. You have the 23S, you have the 16S, and then you have the 5S. Yung maliit tsaka yung malaki. So yung S natin, di ba, sabi natin, those are the Svedberg units. No? So kung paano kabilis mape-precipitate mo yung iyong material or yung iyong molecule. So that's the Svedberg unit. Okay, so if you look at the E. coli ribosomes, so you have the small and then you have the large subunit. So in terms of the sedimentation coefficient, so you have 30S for the small subunit and 50 for the large subunit. For the mass, of course, the large subunit has a higher value, so it's heavier. In terms of the RNA, you have a larger RNA in the large subunit, more bases for the rRNA. So you have the 23S and the 5S in the large subunit, and for the small subunit, you have the 16S. So how many proteins are present in the small subunit? You have 21, and then you have around 31 for the large subunit. And if you look at the fraction of ribosome with RNA and the protein, you have 60-40 for the small subunit, and then you have the 730 for the large subunit. Okay. So cytoplasm, no, tingnan natin yung cytoplasm, and then let's look at the genetic material of prokaryotes. So if you look at the micrograph of the prokaryotic cell, so you cannot see a distinct nucleus, right? So what you have is a nucleoid. So that's the location of the prokaryotic chromosome, and it's irregularly shaped. No? Kasi nakita natin, di ba, yung nucleus, parang distinct na organelle siya. No? So pagdating sa prokaryote, wala tayo nun. No? And then the bacterial chromosome, as I've said before, they're mostly circular. Of course, there are some exceptions, very tightly coupled, and there's no or little association with histone-like proteins. No? So most of the time, you cannot find histone-like proteins associated with the bacterial chromosome. So it's not surrounded by a nuclear membrane. So yung genome ng prokaryotic organism, so usually they're circular, double-stranded piece of DNA. So can multiple copies of the DNA be present in prokaryotic cells? Yes or no? Ano sa tingin nyo? Can you see multiple copies of the DNA in prokaryotes? Yes or no? Anong sagot sa chat? Are multiple copies of the double-stranded DNA possible for prokaryotes? Wala sumasagot. Yes or no? Possible ba? Anong sagot? Yes, no? Yes, you can see multiple copies. No? For example, kung mag-start ka mag-divide, diba? You can see multiple copies. So in the life cycle of the cell, so a prokaryotic cell, multiple copies might be present. So the answer is yes. A big yes. No? Okay, so for the archaeal chromosome, so they are also circular, but the difference or the difference between the bacteria and the archaeal chromosome, for the archaeal chromosome, you can find them associated with histone-like proteins. And then, additionally, for the genetic material of prokaryotes, in some cases, you have bacterial species that contains plasmids. So what are these plasmids? So these are small, independent, double-stranded molecules that can replicate independently. So these plasmids, because they're located outside the genome of the bacterial cell, so these are non-essential. So if pag nawala yung plasmid, buhay pa rin yung cell. So these are non-essential. So they're still viable. But what it confers is they enhance the survivability of the microorganism or the cell. No? So it's for in some cases it's important for pathogenicity, important for virulence, for them to survive harsh conditions. So all these traits are plasmid borne. Okay, so in terms of composition, so the archaeal membranes are different from bacteria and eukarya. No? So for bacteria and eukarya, so you have ester link. No? Na-discuss natin to kanina doon sa table, di ba? So these are ester link, while in archaea, these are ether link. So, so the branch chain hydrocarbons are attached to glycerol by ether links rather than fatty acids attached to ester links. So that's the difference between the bacteria and eukarya and the archaeal membrane. Okay. Okay. So, and this one just shows you the composition of archaeal membrane lipids. So you have this, hindi masyadong common yung kanyang, yung nature nung substrate or the substance. So you have vitanyl glycerol diether, you have dibiphenyl glycerol tetraether. So these kinds of molecules, which are considered different, compared to the ones that you can find in the cell membrane lipids. Okay, so that's all for the cell membrane. Okay, so if you have many questions ba, if you have questions, uh, you can put in the chat. No? So yung cell membrane, mabilis na, no? So diniscuss natin. So cell wall, and then cell membrane, and then cytoplasm, the nuclear material, and the ribosome, no? Kung ano ng mga parts, yung diniscuss natin. So ngayon, meron na tayong idea kung ano ba yung nakikita natin sa isang prokaryotic cell. Di ba? Okay. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. No? Sandali. May nakikita ba kayo doon sa ano? May nakikita
Sir,
kayo sa screen? Yes?
wala po.
Wala. Okay, so I'll share another slide deck with you. Okay. Okay. So may nakikita na ba kayo?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Okay, yung ano, other cell wall, cell surface structures. So, kagaya nga ng sabi ko, ano, so nakita natin kung ano yung basic na laman ng isang prokaryotic cell. So, you have the cell wall, you have the cell membrane, and then you have the cytoplasm, you have the ribosome, and then you have the nuclear material. So, aside from that, what are the other components of a prokaryotic cell wall? So, let's start with the glycocalyx. No? So, the glycocalyx is the general term for the thick covering that is deposited outside the bacterial cell. No? So this is composed of high molecular weight polysaccharide. And of course, conditional. No? The synthesis of the glycocalyx is conditional. So it may or may not be produced by the cell. And the production depends on the necessity or availability of nutrients. So there are two types of glycocalyxes. No? So one is the capsule and the other one is the slime layer. So what is the difference between the two? If the glycocalyx is compact and it's well organized, then it's called the capsule. So this one is attached firmly to the cell wall. So I know during your undergraduate courses, you were able to see capsules, na? You did capsule staining. Tama ba ko? So, nag-capsule staining kayo nung inyong micro 11, di ba? Yes? Oh, yes. Okay. So, yung tanong doon sa chat, no? Kung may quiz. So, later yung quiz, no? Uh, mamaya natin mamaya natin gawin yung quiz, no? After nitong module na to. So, di ba? Nag-capsule staining kayo, di ba? Nung undergrad sa laboratory, no? And then the other form of the glycocalyx is the slime layer. So the slime layer is a zone of diffuse, unorganized material. So pag hindi siya masyadong organized, then it's loosely arranged. Parang diffuse siya. Then it's called the slime layer. So ano ba ang function ng glycocalyx? So specifically for the capsule, so the capsule actually contributes to the virulence of the pathogen. If the bacteria is pathogenic, then the capsule plays a major role in the pathogenicity. So why? Because the capsule protects the cell against the immune response of the host. So, and in many cases, the capsule are antigenic determinants of the LPS. So, ano example ng mga Anong example ng mga organisms with capsule? Sige nga. So, anong organism ang merong capsule? Gusto ko makita sa... Yes, ayan. Good. So, Bacillus anthracis. So, meron siyang poly-D-glutamate. No? Glutamate yung ano niya. Tapos, ayan. Klebsiella, Streptococcus na yung famous. Na? So, good, good, good. So, alam nyo. Okay. So, the first one is glycocalyx. So, ano ba yung importance ng glycocalyx? So, these are some of the important roles of the glycocalyx. So, they can exclude no viruses and toxic substances away, no, away from the bacterial cell. It can protect against physical injury. It can be used for attachment to surfaces, resistance to phagocytes. In some cases, they are used for as a reservoir for food. They contribute to to maintain no, the integrity of the cell. It can prevent desiccation. It has a role in pathogenicity. It is antigenic. It has antigenic properties. And in some books, they say that it's the cellular garbage dump. No? So pag yung mga basura din ang tinatapon sa capsule. Okay, so what are the different types of capsules? So you have what we call the exopolypeptides and the exopolysaccharides. No? So for example, sa Bacillus anthracis, no? Yung glutamic acid. So it's made up of glutamic acid polymers. And then you have the ones that are made from sugar nucleotide precursors, which are your exopolysaccharides. So these exopolysaccharides, for example, are those that you can find in Streptococcus. So in terms of the composition, the capsules can be homopolymeric or heteropolymeric. So pag sinabi natin homopolymeric, then it's made up of only one kind of subunit. If it's heteropolymeric, then it's made up of more than one kind of subunit. Okay, so this is a table showing you different examples of gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria with capsule, with possessing capsules, no? And this is their corresponding capsule composition and what particular structural subunit compose these capsules, no? So meron tayong example, no? So you have Bacillus, no? Maraming Bacillus and Streptococcus. So Bacillus anthracis, Megatherium mutant, Streptococcus mutans, Pneumoniae, Pyogenes. For the gram-negative, you have E. coli, Pseudomonas, Azotobacter, Acetobacter. So kung makita natin capsule composition, so mostly they're made up of polypeptides, polysaccharides. No? So for the gram-negative, mostly they're made up of polysaccharides. And then you have different structural subunits, like the D-glutamic acid for Bacillus anthracis, glucose for Streptococcus mutans, sugars, amino acids, uronic acid for S. pneumoniae. For the gram-negative capsule-forming microorganisms, you have glucose for Acetobacter selinum as their structural subunit. For E. coli, you have glucose, galactose, glucuronic acid, manuronic acid for Pseudomonas, and Azotobacter. Glucuronic acid for Azotobacter. So makita natin iba-iba yung structural subunits ng capsule sa iba't ibang klase ng microorganism. So that's the point of this table. So for capsule synthesis, so sugars are synthesized by the cell through the normal process of intermediary metabolism. So minsan ang pinanggagalingan ng mga, kunyari yung exopolysaccharide capsules, these capsules come from the sugar nucleotide precursors. No? So at first, they will synthesize nucleoside diphosphate sugar precursors, and then you will form a polysaccharide chain, and then it will be translocated across the membrane. So ilalagay nila sa labas. Kasi nasa labas yung capsule. In some cases, you can produce capsule from sucrose, so external sugar source. So in this case, you will add glycosyl units, step-by-step addition of the glycosyl subunits to a molecule of sucrose. And then cell elongation will occur through a process called transglycosylation. Ayan. So pwedeng galing sa sugar nucleotide precursors or galing sa labas yung sugar mo. Okay, so this is in Leuconostoc mesenteritis. So please look at this diagram here. So this is the same organism, same bacteria, Leuconostoc mesenteritis. One is straight on a glucose medium here, and another one, A, yung A yung glucose, and then on B is your sucrose, is Leuconostoc stick on sucrose medium. So as you can see here, you have a larger size of the colonies and mucoidal appearance in the colonies that were grown on the sucrose medium. So this is because growing in a sucrose medium actually promotes EPS formation in this particular bacteria in Leuconostoc. No? So this is massive synthesis and deposition of dextran molecules around the cells. And it is this is exemplified by the formation of the EPS, extra polysaccharide. So this is also present in Pseudomonas and in Pseudomonas related species like Ralstonia. Okay, so the next one. So the next structure that we're going to talk about is the pili. Now, the pili is a hair-like structure found in the surfaces of the prokaryotic cell. So they are composed of small protein subunits called pilids. So in older books, you call the pili the fimbriae. So these are some of the examples of pili. So you have the type 1 pili, you have the type 4 pili, you have the F pili, and then you have the P pili. So they differ in the size of the pilin or the protein subunit. So for example, for the type 4 pilus, you have 19 kilodaltons. So you have pilins from 16 to 19 kilodaltons in size. So more importantly, these different pili, these different types of pili possess different abilities. So they are used for different purposes. So for type 1 pili, so these are found in pathogenic and non-pathogenic E. coli. Type 4 pilus is actually responsible for movement. So for the twitching motility of microorganisms. So ang ginagamit niya doon ay yung type 4 pilus. The F pilus, I think you're familiar with this one. This is the one that is used in conjugation. So the F pilus is a conjugated pilus and it's used for conjugation, a type of horizontal gene transfer. And then you have the type P pilus, which is responsible for the virulence of the uropathogenic E. coli. Okay, so here I just want to show you how the type 4 pilus looks like. So the type 4 pilus actually is composed of different proteins. So you have the pil A, pilin A, pil B, pil C, pil D, pil Q, and pil T. So these different proteins have different functions. So for example, pil A is the main component of the type 4 pilus filament. So that's the pilin. And the pil B is an ATPase. So this one mediates the assembly of the pilus and extension. The pil C is the inner membrane protein. The pil D is it's actually a methylase. And then the pil Q is the outer membrane secretin, and then the pil T is the ATPase. So ATPase, the function of this ATPase is that it mediates pilus retraction and disassembly. So if you can see here, this is the immature pil A or the pilin, right? So the pilin is being transported to the inner membrane. Sinusundo siya ng pil D. So this is a methylase. So once methylated, so this one will be deposited, no? Will be secreted to the using the pil Q. Kung makita natin, di ba? Yung pil C, yun yung parang base niya. So this is the inner membrane protein. So this acts as the base of this structure. And then you have the pil Q here. So if you remember, the type 4 pilus is present in the gram-negative bacteria. So you have the inner membrane and the outer membrane, and then you have the periplasm here. So that means that you should have a protein here that is embedded in the outer membrane. And this is the function of the pil Q protein. So this is the outer membrane secretin. Secretin kasi nagsisecrete siya ng mga pil A proteins. So yung pil B natin, so this one is, pil B is responsible for the assembly of the T4 pilus, while the pil T is responsible for the disassembly. So ito yung panggawa, ito yung pangsira. So and these are all in a complex with the pil C, which is the base of the type 4 pilus. So the pil A is actually made in the cytoplasm, di ba? And then it moves to the inner membrane. So ayun. So tapos magde-deposit siya dito to form your helical na yung type 4 pilus. And then you have the pil C here. The pil C is the inner membrane protein. So ito, ang purpose nito ay for attachment of the pilus. So sabi natin yung pilus kunyari ginagamit siya ng Pseudomonas for movement na yung twitching motility niya. So attach siya sa surface, ang ginagamit niya doon yung pil C. Okay, so this diagram just shows you the structure of the type 1 and the type P pilus. So if you look here, it's color-coded. So the most important thing to remember in this slide is that the type 1 and the type P pilus have homologous proteins. No? Kaya color-coded yan. So yung FIMH here and the PAPG is actually, these are functional homologs and they function as adhesive. Adhesive yung mga proteins na nag-adhere sa surfaces. And then you have adapters for both type 1 and type P, yung dilaw, yung PAP F, tsaka yung FIMG sa type 1. And then you have the adapter, and then you have the major rod subunit, FIM A for the type 1, and PAP A for the type P. And then you have the Usher chaperone proteins here. So ang point lang nitong slide na to, so you have type 1 and type P pilus or pili with parts that are functional homologs of each other. Okay, so for the synthesis of the pili, so the most common pathway for the synthesis of pili is using the chaperone-Usher pathway. So this is in E. coli. So ang nangyari lang dito, kung naalala niyo yung sec translocon na diniscuss natin kanina, di ba? It's the same thing, no? So you have you have the pinin subunits no, secreted through the inner membrane into the periplasm by the SEC-YEG translocon. So kung naalala niyo yung syringe na sinasabi ko kanina, di ba? Yung sa SEC dependent translocation pathway. So this is a similar thing. So chaperone-Usher pathway. So you have pinin subunits that are secreted through the inner membrane. Tapos pag na-secrete na siya, tsaka siya magpo-fold. So for the SEC-YEG translocon, so it translocate unfolded proteins. So another one is the use of the sortase mediated assembly. So in this case, the most important thing is that you have this particular protein here, which is a sortase. So the sortase is the one that catalyzes the polymerization of these proteins. So yung mga these are proteins that are important for the formation of the pilus, yung SPA-C, SPA-A, and then SPA-B. So the one that assembles these small protein subunits are what we call the sortase or the sortase proteins. And then there are, in some cases, you have pathways that require ATP. So in Neisseria, for example, so the type 4 pilus assembly is mediated by ATP. So ibig sabihin, kailangan nyo ng ATP para magkaroon ng type 4. So this is an energy requiring process, the formation of pilli. Kaya nga sabi natin, pag hindi kailangan ng cell ng pilli or ng pilus, hindi siya gagawin. Kasi it requires energy, di ba? Ayaw gumastos ng cell kung hindi naman niya kailangan. Okay, so that's all for the pilus or the pili. Now let's look at the different inclusions. So these inclusions are usually present in prokaryotic cells. So these are distinct bodies that you can find in the cytoplasm. So most of these inclusions function as energy reserves or a reservoir for carbon and or other elements or other nutrients. So these inclusions may or may not be organic. So it may be organic, may be inorganic, and this in many examples they are enclosed in a single layer. So the first one is what we call the glycogen. So it's a polymer that is composed of long chains of glucose units. So anong function ng glycogen? It stores so glucose, no? Sugars. So these sugars can come from different sources, no? So it can come from alpha glucose 1 phosphate. It can come from a glucan molecule. It can come from sucrose or maltose. No? So yan yung glycogen. Okay, the next one is the poly B hydroxybutyric acid or the PHB. So this is one of the most common inclusion bodies that you can find in the prokaryotic organism. The PHB or poly B hydroxybutyric acid. So this is lipid that is formed from beta hydroxybutyrate molecules. These are joined by ester linkages. So actually galing yan sa glucose. No? Glucose to acetyl-CoA. So ano yun? Saan galing yun? Excuse me. Saan galing yun? Glucose to acetyl-CoA. Di ba? Glycolysis, no? Glucose. Tapos pyruvate. Pyruvate converted to acetyl-CoA. Then acetyl-CoA, if you add another molecule catalyzed by ketothiolase, you form an aceto-acetyl-CoA. Then the aceto-acetyl-CoA can be converted to 3-hydroxybutyl-CoA and then later on converted to PHB polymer. So these PHB granules are produced under conditions where nitrogen is limiting, nitrogen and phosphorus is limiting, but the carbon source is abundant. So tandaan nyo, no? Ang PHB ay napoproduce pag mataas yung glucose, no? Yung carbon source doon sa medium, pero limiting yung nitrogen at yung phosphorus. Many microorganisms actually accumulate inorganic phosphate in the form of granules. So what we call the polyphosphate granules. So what is the function? The function is to accumulate phosphate, diba? Kasi alam natin phosphate is one of the most important element or molecule inside the cell. So the function is as an energy source or an ATP substitute. So this is also a source of phosphate for nucleic acids. And also the phosphate, if you remember, when we produce the phospholipid, during phospholipid biosynthesis, we need phosphate. And then they act as chelators, chelating agents for various metal ions. They can serve as internal buffers. They are important for the formation of channels for DNA entry. They are regulatory signals for environmental stress response and in the developmental changes of microorganisms. So maraming function, na? So kasi mahalaga nga yung phosphate. So ibig sabihin, pag merong excess phosphate, ang ginagawa ng cell, ini-store niya yon. Kasi later on sabi niya, magagamit ko naman yan later on. So kaya yun yung purpose ng production ng polyphosphate granules. So these are the key enzymes responsible for the formation of polyphosphate granules. So meron tayo tinatawag na phosphotransferase. No? So kung makita nyo, no? This is an ADP phosphotransferase. This is a polyphosphate phosphotransferase. So they both produce your polyphosphate granules. The only difference is that the substrate or the source of the phosphate is different. Now dito, you have the polyphosphate and ATP. So this requires ATP. And for this, you have a 1,3-diphosphoglycerate instead of the ATP. So next are your cyanophycin granules. So these are composed of large polypeptides that contain approximately equal amounts of amino acids. So ang tinatago nito ay arginine and aspartic acid. So these are the cyanophysin granules. So you have 1:1 ratio of arginine and aspartic acid contained in these granules, cyanophysin granules. And then you have the carboxysomes. So these are polyhedral bodies that contain the ribulose 1,5-biphosphate carboxylase or yung tinatawag nating rubisco. So saan ba importante yung rubisco? These carboxysomes are site of carbon dioxide fixation. So saan ba natin makikita yung carboxysomes na yan? So sa sulfur oxidizing autotrophic thiobacillus. So saan ba natin nakikita yung yung rubisco? So this is an enzyme for the autotrophic fixation of carbon dioxide, na? Doon natin nakikita yan. And then you have the magnetosomes. Magnetosomes, okay? So these are magnetic crystals that are contained in the cytoplasm. So intracellular chains of magnetic particles located within the invaginations of the cell membrane. So the function of these magnetosomes are, the function is for them to migrate in a magnetic field. So ang nangyari, parang ano siya, parang compass, kaya magnetosome. Siya yung compass ng cell. No? So it aids in the orienting of the bacteria in the Earth's magnetic field. So nangyari, parang merong north-seeking tsaka south-seeking ang bacteria. No? So for example, kunyari yung bacteria mo ay nasa muddy waters. No? So kagaya ng sinasabi ko kanina, so the magnetosomes, the function is to orient the bacteria toward the Earth's magnetic field. So saan ba natin nakikita yung mga magnetosomes? So they found out that magnetosomes are present in microorganisms that require low oxygen. No? So nakita nila yung mga microorganisms o mga bacteria na kailangan ng low oxygen concentration, yung mga microaerophilic bacteria. Yun, may mga magnetosomes yun. So ang theory ng mga scientists natin, so they theorize that they hypothesize that the function of magnetosome, so this is one of the function of the magnetosome, is to guide these aquatic cells downward. So kasi, di ba magaang ang mga bacteria, ang mga microorganisms. So umakyat siya dun sa tubig. Tapos pag akyat niya sa tubig, mataas yung oxygen level. So the function of the magnetosome is to make them sink so that they have a lower oxygen concentration so that they can live. So this is specifically true for the microaerophilic microorganisms. So that's one function of the magnetosomes. So kaya tinatawag na magnetosome kasi para siyang compass. So it orients the microorganism or the bacteria to a more favorable condition. Okay, so the next one are your sulfur globules. So these are long chains of polythionates with traces of sulfur rings. So the function of sulfur globules are for temporary storage of sulfur. So in some cases, you see 7 to 9 sulfur atoms, no? A chain of 7 to 9 sulfur atoms. So saan nyo ba nakikita yung sulfur globules? So I think the most famous will be Leucotrix thiobacterium. They store sulfur through the sulfur globules. So you can see this accumulating in the periplasmic space of the cells. So ito yung mga sulfur globules kung nakita yung arrow ko. So the next one are your gas vesicles. So what are these gas vesicles? These are small, hollow, cylindrical structures. These gas vesicles are impermeable to water but are freely permeable to gases. So as the name implies, so this is for the exchange of gases, no? So in terms of structure, so these gas vesicles contain proteins that have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic regions. So meron silang tinatawag natin na alpha helix structure, and then they have the beta sheet. No? So these gas vesicles are permeable to air, saan pa ba? Sa oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, but they are impermeable to water. So anong function ng gas vesicles? So gas exchange, one. Two, they confer buoyancy. So they allow cells to float. So they can position themselves properly in a water column. So that's the function of the gas vesicles. So this is a micrograph this is a TEM micrograph of the gas vesicles. No?
This is from the bacterium Ancylobacter aquaticus. So kung makita nyo, kaya siya permeable sa gases, no? So makita nyo yung structure dito. So it has two proteins, no? You have the GBP-A and GBP-C. So these two proteins interact to form a watertight but a gas permeable structure. So meron kang beta sheet yung GBPA, yun yung parang ribs niya, no? Yung rib. Tapos yung GBPC, which is the alpha helix structure that cross-links this beta sheets. So that's the composition. So to summarize, so I'll end this slide with this table. So these are some inclusion bodies in the bacterial cell. So let's see one by one, right? So you have glycogen. So the function is for reserve carbon and energy source. So you have second, the poly beta hydroxybutyric acid, or PHB. You can find this in Pseudomonas. So this also functions for reserving carbon and energy sources. Then you have the polyphosphate inclusions to store phosphate, sulfur globules to store sulfur, also for reservation of electrons, gas vesicles for buoyancy, parasporal crystals found in endospore forming bacilli like Bacillus. So these parasporal crystals are known to interact with insects, no? Cause toxicity, parang silang toxic crystals or substances. Then you have magnetosomes for orientation and migration along the geomagnetic field lines, no? So found in certain aquatic bacteria. Carboxysomes for many from autotrophic bacteria. So it's a site for carbon dioxide fixation. Phycobilisomes, you can find this in cyanobacteria. These are light harvesting pigments, and then you have chlorosomes in green bacteria. So this is their equivalent for the light harvesting pigments and antennae. So that's it for this module.